In 10 months of this year, Ukraine helped everyone. We helped the West to find its identity again, to return to the global arena and feel how much the West prevails. No one in the West is afraid of Russia anymore and never will be. Citing Zelensky's speech in the Rada yesterday. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane and UATV, explaining complex things in simple words for the whole world, directly from Ukraine. On December 28th, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy delivered his annual speech to the Ukrainian parliament, the Verkhovna Rada, during its last session this year. His address was held behind closed doors and was delayed for about 90 minutes due to an air raid alert in Kiev. He reported that more than 1.2 trillion hryvnias, over $32 billion, were allocated for defense needs the year when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Zelenskyy listed key achievements of the armed forces in 10 months of the full-scale war, such as the liberation of Kiev suburbs and the strategic Zmyny Island, the sinking of the Russian flagship Moskva, and a successful counteroffensive in northern eastern Kharkiv Oblast. The armed forces had already liberated over 1,800 settlements from Russian occupation, and Ukraine had achieved the release of 1,456 of its residents from Russian captivity since the start of an all-out war on February 24th.
Ukraine is on its way to the victory that generation of our people dreamed of. Our children are dreaming about it now. Our parents and grandfathers dreamed about it too. What was not achieved before will be achieved now. And this is possible thanks to the fact that for the first time in the several centuries we have national unity, our own functioning state and the maximum unity of the world for the sake of supporting our beautiful Ukraine. We will not let anyone roll it back to the old days. People will not give. The world will not give. Our unity must be as strong as our warriors.
Zelenskyy spoke for roughly 45 minutes about domestic and foreign policy and emphasized three main parts we are going to talk you through today. This year, Ukraine was granted the status of a European Union candidate, the first step on the path towards full-fledged membership. Membership in the European Union has long been our key aspiration as a country, which is reflected in the Ukrainian constitution among the main goals. On December 27th, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration Olga Stefanishyna reported that Ukraine has done everything possible to implement the recommendations provided by the EU.
Progress on the Ukrainian side is dynamic. We are not ready to wait another whole year until the fall of 2023 for a political assessment. That is why we expect that in early March we will assess our steps together with the European Union and prepare for the start of negotiations. Olga Stefanishyna, Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration.
Moscow has repeatedly attacked critical infrastructure across Ukraine since early October, killing dozens of people and causing electricity, water and heating cutoffs. In its latest large-scale attack on energy facilities, Russia launched 76 cruise missiles, 60 of which were downed. And today, this very morning, the whole Ukraine witnessed another brutal terrorist attack from Putin's Russia side. 69 missiles launched on us, 54 downed. You know, my girlfriend and I saw 2 of the incoming missiles this morning and saw with our own eyes how both of them were downed. Seeing that out of our own window, she asked me for a coffee and said just one thing: "One brown sugar, baby." What could be more Ukrainian spirit, And the whole nation agrees with my girlfriend. The National Bank reported on December 27th that Ukraine's economy will grow more slowly than expected in 2023. I want to emphasize that our economy will grow more slowly in times of war. But peace is another part of our president's speech. Zelenskyy stated that an essential part of Ukraine's policy is creating a Russian war crimes tribunal.
I am sure that the tribunal will work. The international compensation mechanism that we are currently building will also work. At the same time, we must cooperate as much as possible with our international partners, with the International Criminal Court. No crime committed by the occupiers in Ukraine should go unpunished.
In late November, the European Commission revealed its plans to set up a UN-backed specialized court to prosecute Russia's crime of aggression, a term which refers specifically to the select few individuals responsible for the decision to invade Ukraine. Making the announcement, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in a statement that Russia must pay for its horrific crimes. 10 months into Russia's full-scale invasion, Moscow is believed to have killed tens of thousands of civilians across Ukraine and caused immeasurable damage to Ukrainian cities. According to the United Nations, at least 6,884 civilians have been killed and 10,947 have been wounded in Ukraine since February 24th. A war crime tribunal is also part of Zelensky's 10-point peace plan. Let us guide you through it once again. Radiation and nuclear safety. Focusing on restoring security around Europe's largest nuclear power plant, Zaporizhia, in Ukraine, which is now Russian-occupied. Food security, including protecting and ensuring Ukraine's grain exports to the world's poorest nations. Energy security, with a focus on price restrictions on Russian energy resources, as well as aiding Ukraine with restoring its power infrastructure, half of which has been damaged by Russian attacks. Release of all prisoners and deportees, including war prisoners and children deported to Russia. Restoring Ukraine's territorial integrity and Russia reaffirming it according to the UN Charter, which Zelenskyy said is not up to negotiations. Withdrawal of Russian troops and the cessation of hostilities, the restoration of Ukraine's state borders with Russia. Justice, including the establishment of a special tribunal to prosecute Russian war crimes. The prevention of ecocide and the protection of the environment with a focus on demining and restoring water treatment facilities. Prevention of an escalation of conflict and building security architecture in Euro-Atlantic space, including guarantees for Ukraine. Confirmation of the war's end, including a document signed by the involved parties. Well, what could be added to that but coffee, Mr. President, and glory to Ukraine. Zelenskyy historical visit to United States. Why is it historical? Because it was the first time in the history of both the United States and Ukraine when Ukraine's president gave America's lawmakers a first-hand account of living on the front line in Russia's war against his country in Congress, drawing on his own recent visit to the front line in Bakhmut. It was a historic speech by President Zelenskyy because it was spoken after leaving his homeland for the first time since the invasion began over 300 days ago. It was historic because it was brought in good English to the Congress.
Last year, 70,000 people lived there in Bakhmut, in this city, and now only few civilians stay. Every inch of that land is soaked in blood. Roaring guns sound every hour. Trenches in the Donbas change hands several times a day in fierce combat and even hand fighting. But the Ukrainian Donbas stands.
It was historic because possibly for the first time in the history of America, there was no sign of dissent, even from Republicans, some of whom have questioned an apparent blank check position on arming the country in the face of Russian aggression. It was historic because Zelenskyy presented lawmakers with a Ukrainian flag autographed by frontline troops in Bakhmut, in Ukraine's contested Donetsk province. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Kamala Harris displayed the flag behind him on the rostrum. Pelosi, in turn, presented Zelenskyy with an American flag that had flown over the Capitol that very day, and Zelenskyy pumped it up and down as he exited the chamber. Remember any other president ever done that? It was historic because at the White House, Mr. Zelenskyy met President Joe Biden and thanked him and the American people for the latest round of military and financial assistance being given to Ukraine by the United States, which is by far the largest supporter of the country among Western allies. It was historic because latest arms shipments include long-awaited Patriot missile batteries, which will offer Ukraine citizens a greater chance of surviving bombardment by Russian missiles and shells.
We should be clear about what Russia's doing. It is purposefully attacking Ukraine's critical infrastructure, destroying the systems that provide heat and light to the Ukrainian people during the coldest, darkest part of the year. Russia is using winter as a weapon, freezing people, starving people.
It was historic because the two leaders appeared to share a warm rapport, laughing at each other's commands and patting each other on the back throughout the visit, although Zelenskyy made clear he will continue to press Biden and other Western leaders for ever more support. And both of them, Biden and Zelenskyy, understand it is a proper thing to do. Biden told Zelenskyy that it was important for the American people and for the world to hear directly from you, Mr. President, about Ukraine's fight and the need to continue to stand together through 2023. President Zelensky's decision to leave his homeland for the first known time since fighting began also served to undermine Russia's claim that support for Ukraine is wavering among NATO allies. The Economist picked Ukraine as the country of the year. As said, the title was awarded for the heroism of its people and for standing up to a bully. The Economist admits that in normal times, picking the country of the year is hard. But this year, for the first time since they started doing that in 2013, the choice is quite obvious. It can only be Ukraine. I'd be the last man on earth to argue to that. We have proved ourselves this year. 4 of our qualities stand out. The first is heroism. Yes, that simple. Yes, that clear. And yes, that no false modesty mode. When the invasion began, most of you thought Ukraine would be crushed by Putin's Russia. The world would have understood if Ukraine's defenders had just fled. Let us be frank, the world expected us to. Mr. Putin clearly did. And for the Ukrainian army to fold. His troops arrived with their parade uniforms all ready for victory, without food and supplies even, hoping to get all they need here in Ukraine. Well, all they are getting now is 100,000 body bags and counting. The Ukrainians stood and fought. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy spurned Western offers to spirit him out of Kiev, supposedly snapping that he needs ammunition, not a ride.
Today we need calm from you, from each of you. If possible, please stay at home. We are working, the army is working, the entire security and defense sector of Ukraine is working. I, the National Security Council, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine will always be in touch with you. I will be in touch again soon. No panic. We are strong, we are ready for anything. We will defeat everyone because we are Ukraine.
Ordinary, or rather said not ordinary Ukrainians, showed similar mettle. We were usual people, professors, plumbers and pop stars before we flocked to enlist, swapping comfortable beds for frosty foxholes and the risk of agonizing death. Now we are the Ukrainian army, and the Ukrainian army is literally us. We are the nation raised against dictatorship, slavery, and long outdated colonial spirit of Putin's Russia. In battle after battle, we routed the Russians. In defending ourselves against the aggressor who disputed our country's very right to exist as an independent state, we have found a new sense of nationhood. We showed ingenuity. We spotted enemies' weaknesses, blew up their fuel and ammunition supplies, and quickly learned how to use new Western-supplied weapons. We devolved decision-making to officers in the field, making their units more nimble and adaptable than the plodding, hierarchical Russians. We made deft use of help from friendly intelligence services, especially America's, while our enemies fought half-blind. We, the people of Ukraine, have also demonstrated resilience. When there is no tap water at home, we melt snow. When there is no power, we find heat and light in cafes and diesel generators, or sleep in offices where we work, many of which now have bomb shelters and bottled water. The horrors Mr. Putin keeps inflicting on us do not seem to have dented our morale. On contrary. Our children in shelters singing patriotic songs. Yes, our life is like this today, but maybe because it is like this today, we will persevere. Russian forces have routinely bombed us, tortured captives, and plundered our villages. By contrast, Russian prisoners of war are startled at how well we treat them. This is largely because Ukraine is not, as Mr. Putin claims, a Nazi state, but a democracy where human lives matter. We have our flaws, but our government and our people, united, have rejected Putinism as the idea and Putin as a ruler even before the war, and now we reject it all more strenuously. By standing up to Russia's despot, we have protected our neighbors. Had he conquered Ukraine, he might have attacked Moldova or Georgia next, or menaced the Baltic states. We have shown that underdogs can stand up to bullies, even those who seem to be unbeatable. Many tyrants broadcast big lies to justify their misdeeds and impose their will through terror. We, the people of Ukraine, have shown that lies can and will be exposed, and terror can and will be resisted. Our struggle is far from over, but our example in 2022 was second to none, and no doubt will be followed in future. It was Henry Keane on UATV, hoping to explain complicated things in simple terms for you. Stay safe and tuned for more.